Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. And welcome to this. It's another reply to Steve Mumbling. Now, I was going to make this part of the my original plan for this video was for it to be part of the UFO disclosure series, but I thought, no, let me do a reply to the Mumbler. I've not done one for ages, and I want to. It's quite convenient actually, because I'm going to analyze this new document that's come out of AARO. And I don't really want to do a deep dive into it. I mean, basically because it's just too boring. A massive breakdown of the entire article will take a couple of hours, and it doesn't say anything familiar. It doesn't say anything original. It'll sound very, very familiar to most people who've been studying UFOs during the last lifetime. In fact, behind me, over this shoulder, you can see General John A. Sanford. Now, this is him at the Pentagon doing a report, and he does a little speech about UFOs. And what he actually says is almost verbatim what is still being said today. Now, Sanford actually made this speech in 1952. It was televised. Luckily, they had Donald Kehoe on the same platform, and he was actually on there as well. But and giving the other side of the story, saying he does believe these are interplanetary ships. And he provided the evidence, which again you're going to be familiar with if you have any interest at all in this particular subject. So yeah, that's a good starting point. I mean, things are moving fast at the moment. There's a lot of frustration and anger and bitterness about what's happened with the latest AARO report, and this could have undreamt of consequences, which I'm going to go into in the course of this video. But to begin with, I will give you a brief look at this particular article. However, really, I think it's not. I would say it's not really worth reading. I mean, it has almost no information in. However, it could be that its very banal nature could be the exact. It could be the exact kind of catalyst that's needed for some kind of breakthrough, some kind of end of the impasse. It's something to basically kickstart the whole process, the disclosure train, as I described it in the last UFO disclosure video. Definitely. So, in a sense, I sense that the door may be opening for catastrophic disclosure. And when I say catastrophic disclosure, I'm not using that to mean anything bad. Catastrophic disclosure is a kind of buzzword that's emerged in the kind of new ufology period since 2017, especially following David Grush, which happened almost a year ago now, the David Grush revelations, which was June, so it's not quite a year. It's 9 months or so. It's like ontological shock. That's another of these little buzzwords. But anyway, we'll have a quick look at the article concerned. I'm not going to dwell. I'm going to go through the basics of it. I'm not going to dwell on it though, because it's much more. It's much more amusing to see what the Mumbler says about it, and then I can maybe address it in that sense. Because Steve has done his own kind of breakdown, or his own kind of assessment, which of course his views are diametrically opposed to my own. So it's the easiest way to analyze this article is through criticizing the commentary of Steve Mumbling. So let's start. Let us begin. This is the title page here, and there's the name, the Department of Defense All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, previously AIMSOG, previously ATIP, previously UAPTF, previously ORSAP, previously God knows what. But anyway, it's got this very pompous name here, Report on the Historical Record of U.S. Government Involvement with Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. And UAP Volume 1, which means there's a Volume 2 somewhere. I do wonder what is going to be in that Volume 2. Well, to be honest, I don't really. Anyway, they have, as you can see here, they have a table of contents. It's much longer. This is 63 pages, much longer than the last couple we've had. I always said they were too short, and I thought, when I saw, excuse me, when I said, oh my goodness, we got a really long one here, I think this is going to be really, really great. It's going to be better. That is actually a misleading and disappointing conclusion to reach. But what you can see is that there is actually these items in the introduction are hyperlinked, which you need on such a long article. So, for example, if I click there, it takes me to Project Grudge. There we are. See, and then before that, you have Project Sign. I mean, a lot of these, the bulk of this article is actually simply summarizing previous investigations into UAP dating back to 1945. It was going to be 1947, but for some reason they pushed it back to 1945, maybe to add a little bit more, a few pages to the article. I don't know. Anyway, so we will begin here. As always, they waste a lot of space by having these sort of like orphaned paragraphs at the top of these big empty pages. Luckily, it's not. I hope it's not printed, because that's a waste of paper. But anyway, we'll go through the introduction anyway. And here we go. Section 1, introduction. I'll put on my bureaucratic voice so you'll know when I'm talking. This report represents Volume 1 of the All-Domain AARO historical report, which reviews the record of the United States government pertaining to unidentified anomalous phenomena. In completing this report, AARO reviewed all the USG investigatory efforts since 1945, researched classified and unclassified archives, conducted approximately 30 interviews, and partnered with the intelligence community and Department of Defense officials responsible for controlled and special access program oversight, respectively. Well, they haven't reviewed all the official U.S. government investigation. They didn't deal with Hynek's criticism, for example, or anything like that. Do bear in mind that they have a section. They have an entire section here on Project Blue Book. It's really weird. They got like the history of space exploration as well. You see, like Mogul. They got, so that's to do with Roswell, but they've got here Project Mercury, Gemini, Apollo. It's just really, and of course the STS, so-called space shuttle. I don't know why they put those in, but there's not a lot in those little sections, I must say. That's really very, very interesting. They just tried to say, well, UFOs were these things. Basically, people saw these rockets launching and thought they were aliens. As if that's an original. Is that an original idea? You know, I don't have to repeat my bank robber analogy, do I? It's actually very fashionable to say that. To say, well, people see these sorts of things and they're just UFOs. And sometimes when it's secret stuff, the government encourages the UFO subject. But anyway, Project Blue Book, which is a very long one, 1952 to 69, excuse me, ended up radicalizing J. Allen Hynek, the chief investigator, because he understood that this was a complete whitewash. And indeed, if he were alive today, he would find the contents of this particular article strangely familiar. So it goes on. AARO will publish Volume 2 in accordance with the date specialized, excuse me, in Section 6802 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year FY23. Yes, without the Schumer Amendment. Without the Schumer Amendment. That's very important. Volume 2 will provide analysis of information acquired by AARO after the date of the publication of Volume 1. So it's just a little recap, which things that have happened since this one came out. I don't have to go. This is just since 1945, the USG has funded and supported UAP investigations with the goal of determining whether UAP represented a flight safety risk, technological leaps by a competitor nation, or evidence of off-world technology under intelligent control. Yes, but they mustn't reach the last conclusion no matter what. These investigations were managed, implemented by a range of expert scientists, academic, military, intelligence officials under different leaders, all of whom held their own perspectives that led them to particular conclusions. In other words, some of them disagreed with the official story. However, they all had a common belief that UAP represented an unknown and therefore theoretically posed potential threat of immediate nature. Yes, but the whole point of the official government investigation was to just quash that entire idea and fob everyone off and saying, well, they're just weather balloons and swamp gas, nothing to worry about. I mean, this is why, you know, Stephen Greenstreet actually did I haven't actually listened to all of it yet. I don't know if I can listen to all of it. He actually has a new what is it? He has a new thing. He has a new video called it was called R.I.P. UFOs. And I'll make that into the title of this video, R.I.P. UFOs. But the truth of the matter was, I mean, it's just so hubristic, you know. Oh, that's it. It's all over. Nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Move along. Oh, and he's got this video called the UFO Deception, which is actually running live. I don't know if it still is. I think it's on a live loop. I'll just show you a little clip of it here. It's just called. I'll just wait for the out. There we go. And here it is. It's this is like I don't know how long this is. It's on
his book about his skinwalker investigations. He refers to this poltergeist as an infectious agent.
Hang on, I'll put a little clip. I put a comment up here. I don't know if it's still there. I think maybe that's, but I did put a comment on there saying this is a pile of crap. It really, really is. But UFO lies. How paranormal hustlers bamboozle Congress into hunting aliens. Oh, this Green Street is really, he's really swallowed the backslapper skeptic pill. He really, really has. Anyway, let's go back to this article here. Anyway, he did a Twitter space called RIP UFOs, which is pretty much what Steve Mumbling is going to say. In other words, that's it. Case closed. We're not going to look at these anymore. And this new review, what they're saying, these debunkers and backslappers and skeptics, they're saying that this latest article, this 63-page detailed article from AARO, is one of a kind. It's never happened before, and it completely discredits the idea of UFOs. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing. This is just the latest in a series of fake, nothing to see here, diversions. This is for people familiar and with open-minded enough to understand. This article is transparently misinformation. Anyway, I won't read all of this. Just, it goes into the usual stuff. Now, this is where it does get a little bit interesting. A consistent theme in popular culture involved a particularly persistent narrative that the US government or a secretive organization within it recovered several off-world spacecraft and extraterrestrial biological remains, and that it operates a program or programs to reverse engineer the recovered technology, and that it has conspired since the 1940s to keep this effort hidden from the United States Congress and the American public. Now, that's when I've read that, I thought, blimey, that I've never read that sort of thing in one of these reports before. Does that mean we're going to get? Are they going to come clean on it? Are they going to honestly explore this with all the evidence? AARO recognizes that many people sincerely hold versions of these beliefs which are based on their perceptions of past experiences, the experiences of others whom they trust, or media and online outlets they believe to be sources of credible and verifiable information. The proliferation of television programs, books, movies, and the vast amount of internet and social media content centered on UAP-related topics most likely has influenced the public conversation on this topic and reinforced these beliefs within some sections of the population. Right. Well, some sections of the population does refer unequivocally to myself. But I don't say that because I'm not saying I have some kind of wide-eyed religious belief. I'm not interested in this subject because of some kind of emotional template. Now, I do feel a lot of emotion about this subject, but I do try to remain rational. I'm not hooked into some kind of a cultic, some kind of cultic mania. I try to subject my own ideas to the challenges of dissent, for example. You can't say that I don't do that. I've got an entire lecture on skeptics, for goodness sake. I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics in the Pub, and I watch Steve Mumbling, which is, of course, the ultimate challenge, isn't it? Well, anyway, this particular article, this new article, what I call it, an classic publication from AARO, this epic, dropped with all the explosive force of a feather onto some bubble wrap. It was launched by the Pentagon at a special press conference, as if it's some kind of the new Harry Potter or something, some best-selling novel that's just come out. I mean, literally, it was like, it was. They had this big event at the Pentagon where no doubt they gave them all they gave them all pickled onion and bits of cheese on cocktail sticks and stuff like that, and wine, etc. But it was only for approved media representatives. Pro-ET platforms were banned. So any pro-ET organization like News Nation, Veterans Today, etc., they were banned. They were excluded. The only people allowed there were like CNN, BBC, BBC, Fox, without Tucker Carlson, of course, Oh, he wasn't there. No way. They let him in there. And people like that. And that wasn't very good. That was a bad way, I think, to start this whole thing off. It didn't. It's not a good. It's a bit of a warning sign when news organisations with a certain opinion, a certain editorial position, shall we say, are excluded from this. They don't want people asking any tough questions. Now, the article goes on. We'll carry on. We'll go back to the article now. We'll go back to it now. Now, there's executive summary. Now, this is basically I think this is really all you need to read. I mean, you can read the rest of it if you want, but really the executive summary just is kind of like a spoiler alert kind of situation. AARO found no evidence at all. No evidence. Academic-sponsored research, official review panel confirmed that any sighting of UAP represented extraterrestrial technology. They found no evidence, just like Sanford said, just like the Condon report in 1969 at the end of Project Blue Book. That's like it said. Yeah. And it says here, now it goes one step further because it says here, although many UAP reports remain unsolved or unidentified, AARO assesses that if more and better quality data were available, most of these cases could be identified and resolved as ordinary objects or phenomena. Sensors and visual observations are imperfect. The vast majority of cases lack actionable data, or data available is limited or poor quality. Resources and staffing for these programs largely have been irregular and sporadic. Well, you keep chopping and changing them, don't you? Changing your name and stuff. Challenging investigatory efforts and hindering effective knowledge transfer. That means basically, I mean, they did say this sort of thing in the last report, that basically we don't know what some of these things were, but we still think they were just weather balloons and swamp glass. We just assume that. I'm sure if we could see them closer and we had better information, we would conclude it was that way. Well, why? How can you possibly say that something you don't know what it is, but you still think you would know what it is if you knew more about it? That's very bad logic. That's very bad logic indeed. And it also says here, AARO found no empirical evidence for claims that the USG and private companies have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. AARO determined, based on all information provided to date, that claims involving specific people, known locations, technological tests, and documents allegedly involved in or related to reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology are inaccurate. Additional claims will be addressed in Volume 2. Oh, yeah, likely story. Now, it mentions, it talks about several of the people they've witnessed, that they've interviewed. Now, they haven't interviewed everyone. They have not interviewed David Grush. Kirkpatrick said, "Oh, David Grush couldn't find me. He said he didn't have enough money for the plane fare. He didn't know my phone number and stuff like this." And all this, these are just excuses. You know, this is literally like a dog ate my homework book excuse. You can find the man easily. He's willing to. He's testified before Congress. There may be more congressional investigations. Now it says here, this is the no evidence of threatening death or violence for disclosing UAP information. And now now they don't name these people. The only person they name in this entire article is Wilbert B. Smith, a guy he died a long time ago, and he was running a Canadian government UFO program in the 50s. It says here, a CIA official allegedly managed UAP experimentation. The named former CIA official was not involved in technology. The same former CIA officer signed a memo rejecting claims made by interviewees that he managed the movement or experimentation of off-world technology. I don't know who that person could be. It could be one of several people, but clearly they're working on the other side. Alleged UAP intelligence community document, an alleged 1961 special national intelligence estimate that was leaked to online sources suggests the extraterrestrial natures of UFOs is inauthentic. Right, well, that could be the Psalm 101 document. It could be the Majestic 12 documents. It could be one of several documents, right, that we're again, they don't name it, so we can't be sure. Quote unquote, aliens present during a DoD technology test. AARO reviewed information related to the amount of an interviewee overhearing a conversation about a technology test at a military base where aliens allegedly were observing and AARO judges that the interviewee misunderstood the conversation. Now, that again could refer to several stories that have come out. Claim that a military officer touched an off-world craft. An interviewee claimed that a named former military officer explained in detail how he physically touched an extraterrestrial spacecraft is inaccurate. Now, that's that could be several. That could be Jim Penniston. It could be a couple of people actually. Again, we don't know who they are. The claim was denied on the record by the named former officer who recounted the story when he touched an F-17 Nighthawk stealth fighter that could have been misconstrued by the interviewee. All right, well, I don't know who that could be. That could be That could be Admiral Wilson. I'm not sure. Test of off-world technology. An interviewee claimed that he witnessed what he believed to be the testing of an extraterrestrial technology at a USG facility. Almost certainly was an obfuscation of an authentic non-UAP related technology test that strongly correlated in time, location, and description provided in the interviewee's account. Right. They're basically saying this guy, the interviewee saw something, but then they've worked out that he actually saw something else that wasn't UFOs. Again, that could be one of several people, but I don't think, like I said, in none of these cases should we take AARO's word for it. UAP disclosure study. Interviewees claim that between 2004 and 2007, the White House requested a research institute in Virginia to discuss the theoretical societal impacts of disclosing that UAP are extraterrestrial in origin. AARO confirmed the study was conducted but was not requested by the White House. Right. Now, again, they don't name this particular organization, but I expect it's the Brookings Institute. Again, this could be several. This could be one of several organizations that have done these kinds of societal impact study. The Brookings Institute is actually based in Washington, D.C., apparently not Virginia, but that's quite close. I don't know if they are referring to the Brookings, but the Brookings Institute to study was the first. It was much earlier. It was in 1959. This is between 2004 2007. So I'm not sure exactly what that refers to there. But again, it could be one of several that I've heard of over the years. Not requested by the White House. Well, not officially, I'm sure. Named companies allegedly experimenting on alien technology. AARO has found no evidence that U.S. companies ever possessed off-world technology. The executive scientists and chief technology officers of the companies named by interviewees met with the director of AARO, and they denied on record that they have ever recovered, possessed, or engaged in reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. Yes, they sat there and they looked so honest, and they said, "Cross my heart and hope to die. I swear on everything that I hold dear that this never happened. They're all lying. It's not true. We've never, ever had recovered, possessed, engaged reverse engineering technology." You do believe us, don't you? You really must believe us. Experimentation on alleged extraterrestrial spacecraft sample. AARO has concluded that a sample from an alleged crashed off-world spacecraft that AARO acquired from a private UAP investigation organization and the US Army is a manufactured terrestrial alloy and does not represent off-world technology or possess any exceptional qualities. The sample is primarily composed of magnesium, zinc, and bismuth, with some other trace elements such as lead. All right, yeah. So that's obviously referring to Bigelow Aerospace and Bob Bigelow's activity. The fact that he was contracted to the UAPTF, or whatever it was called back then, ATIP or SAP, whatever it was called back then, to analyze alleged physical evidence. Now, as you know, I've tackled this before, that there have been specific clown's day off fallacies associated with this material. For example, the implant that was removed from the leg of a cyclist, he was like a racing cyclist. It was analyzed and found to have an isotopic ratio that indicated it did not originate on planet Earth. And they said, "Oh, well, he must have slipped off his bike and landed and got a splinter, and the splinter happened to be a piece of a meteorite." Again, a clown's day off fallacy. It was a clown with a day off from the circus. I don't know what clown, but yeah, he dressed up as a Loch Ness monster. That's my explanation. It doesn't involve aliens. It doesn't involve Scottish lake monsters. Therefore, it wins by default. Just watch my skeptic video and you'll find out exactly what's wrong about that. I might even put a link in the description box to that. AARO assesses that all the named described alleged UAP reverse engineer programs provided by the interviewees either do not exist, are misidentified authentic, highly sensitive national security programs that are not related to extraterrestrial technology, exploitation, or resolved through an unwarranted or undistributed program. Right? Is that really? Again, you've got to say, well, it obviously goes into different ideas. Now, basically, there's no. It's just a repeat of the same thing. They interviewed some people and they denied it and things like that. Now, this is the one thing I've never heard of in this entire article. The one named program was a UAP-related prospective special access program called Kona Blue that's proposed by the Department of Homeland Security and supported by individuals who believed that USG was hiding off-world technology. The program was never approved by DHS, and its support has never provided empirical evidence to support their claims. Right now, I've never heard of Kona Blue, whatever that may be, but that's one of the things. That's the only thing here I really haven't heard of in this entire article. Actually, all the rest it just kind of goes on a little bit the same. I don't know if it's actually worth going through any more of this. It's there's scope and assumptions, things like this. It's what I'll do is I think the best thing to do now, rather than do a deep dive into this and bore the shit out of you, is let's go to the Mumbler and hear what he has to say. So we go to Steve Mumbling's channel. Yes, I'm still subbed to him, and we will do a little quick look on what I haven't actually watched him for a couple of months. Oh, he does a thing about the day after Roswell here. Believe it or not, I probably would agree with him on that, because I thought the day after Roswell was a pile of drivel. It really was. Anyway, so we'll go. The two important ones here are his comments on the AARO report. So let's go to Steve Mumbling, see what he has to say. Let's have a look. Right, let's go. This is the first one. Oh, I've been watching it already.
No beavers.
Okay, hang on. Right, let's go back to the beginning. He just changed his style a bit. He sort of like goes into the outback now, and can you see? Hopefully, you can see that. Yeah, and he talks about things in the outdoors. So let's hear what he has to say about this. I'll change the thing here. Now, do you really badly want to see Steve Mumbling's handsome face? Do you really want to gaze on it and admire it? Probably not. So what I'll do is I'll change it to this sort of thing so you can see more of me and less of Steve. All right, so I've changed the kind of like screen share system here. So let's have a look. Where are we now? There we go. That's just Steve Mumbling. Take it away, Steve. I assume you can hear him because I'm sharing the screen and audio. That's good.
Well, hello again. Some notes here again. Well, the AARO report, Volume 1, came out yesterday, I think. It might have been very early this morning, Australian time. The All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It's quite a detailed report, 60 pages. And
it's detailed, but its details are all just sort of like, it's just rehashing. Most of it is just rehashing old material. I mean, really, it could have been a lot shorter and it would have been probably more interesting.
Basically, it says they've thoroughly investigated all the claims made by these piffle peddlers. They've been out and they've contacted, the senior people at the aerospace companies that they've been told by these witnesses.
Come on, hurry up, Steve. Get on with it.
That have this extraterrestrial material, these recovered alien spacecraft, and they've been told categorically by these companies that they certainly don't.
Yeah, and they wouldn't lie, would they? Cross my heart and hope to die. We're telling the truth, Mr. Kirkpatrick. You are a nice man, and you don't have the balls of J. Allen Hynek. Yeah.
So it's all fallen in a heap, really, for the ET UFO fanboys.
Yeah, it's all fallen in a heap for the ET UFO fanboys. Again, fanboys is a derogatory term. It really, really is. I might slow him down a bit. Actually, I don't want him babbling. I'll go to 1.5 speed. There we go.
The report says they've thoroughly investigated it. They've talked to a lot of witnesses. No one can provide any tangible evidence. They've interviewed people at the aerospace companies, any of the companies that are supposedly involved in this crash retrieval program, analysing recovered ET materials. It's all nonsense. Nobody has any ET materials, just as I said.
Yeah, you see, I know they say that, Steve, but is it true? Is it true? Do you believe them? I know you believe them, which you've always believed them, haven't you? Because it's this fits in with your own bias. I mean, you and I both have a bias, and it happens to fit in with yours, and it happens to oppose mine. Yet I'm trying to be rational here and asking, and I'm trying to ask logically using, the real life kind of investigation and science, whether it fits or not. Are you doing the same?
In previous videos, it's all science fiction hogwash. So a
lot of rhetoric, science fiction hogwash. This is typical of Steve. He uses a lot of science fiction. He uses a lot of terms like that, science fiction hogwash.
To the surprise of nobody with an IQ bigger than their shoe size.
More rhetoric again. You're stupid if you don't believe him.
The AARO report says it's all science fiction rubbish.
It doesn't use that word, but it is apparently implying that, yes.
1:30 in the afternoon. I've had a fairly busy day. I was up quite early today. Now, I have to wonder why Gary Nolan didn't go and see AARO, or Sean Kirkpatrick, any of the AARO people, with his ETs at the bottom of the bed story. Had ETs.
Oh, that's his contact experience story. Well, you see, a lot of the people you would think that AARO would take an interest in for their investigation haven't actually been approached. They've made up they've made up excuses like, oh, I haven't got his phone number, or we can't afford to give him money for the plane fare and things like that. That alone should be suspicious. As I've said before, this is not the first time we've been hit with a nothing to see here, move along excuse, diversion. There's nothing new at all in this situation we're in today with what we're dealing with now.
Aliens at the bottom of his bed when he was a kid. Aliens at the bottom of his bed when he just started being a professor at Stanford.
Yeah, he had contact experiences. So again, why didn't they ask Gary that? Yeah, I mean, Gary and David Grush did this Soul Foundation. I haven't watched all the videos yet, but they're all out. They're all available now. I talked about them actually on the last UFO disclosure video.
Talk to him in his head, in English apparently. But then we all know.
Yeah, well, they have kind of telepathic abilities. I mean, they very often don't speak. Therefore, you do tend to hear them in speaking in your own language in your head.
Every alien in the galaxy watches Star Trek and they learn the English language because it's a unit.
Oh, honestly, Steve, that's silly. That's just a silly way to talk about it. It really is. Oh, they watch Star Trek. They learn English that way. No, it's more complicated. They communicate on a mental level.
Universal language. So I hope somebody asked Gary Nolan why he didn't do that.
Maybe he wanted to and they wouldn't let him. Have you considered that? Maybe they just weren't interested in hearing what he had to say.
Maybe he did, but he couldn't prove it. I'd be surprised.
Well, that's possible. It's possible that he couldn't prove it. You can't prove these experiences all the time, Steve. They're very real. They are very, they do happen though. Too many people have them and describe them. They're too similar. They're too similar for them simply to be products of our brain function under sort of like maybe hypnagogic, hypnopompic experiences, like when we're between waking and sleeping. It's all too similar for it to be a subjective thing that just we imagine. Like they're not like dreams. Dreams are all totally different. One person will dream one thing, another person will dream another. Alien abduction is different. Alien abduction is not like that. Alien abduction tends to be the same or very similar. It falls into certain patterns of experience.
If he would sign a statement to that effect. But there we go. What makes Gary Nolan so special, you'd have to wonder. He's a kid. Many years later, they come back and see him again. He didn't say what he actually said to him in his head. Didn't say what the alien said to him when he was a kid. If you're going to fly across the galaxy to see a specific person, and having 2 visits suggests that's what they did, you'd think they would have a specific purpose. What are they going to ask this guy? So, of course, Lou Elizondo has said, we've got all the information, but we'll release it. We've got all the evidence, but we're going to release it at a time of our choosing. Now, he doesn't release it now, or they don't release it now, as a rebuttal to the AARO report, because they haven't got anything. They haven't got anything to release.
Well, Elizondo no longer works for USG. Elizondo is now a civilian ufologist. He says he has information he can't reveal right now. He does believe the information is going to come out, but he's like working independently now. He's a fellow traveler of several people on the inside who I believe do want disclosure. And dealing with Elizondo is like a lot of these people. And I mean, Elizondo is very similar to several other individuals. but it does involve a lot of patience. It involves a huge amount of patience. But I'm not ready to just dismiss this all. So far, I haven't bought the backslapper line that Elizondo is just another shill. And I've described that in other videos. I'm not going to repeat the reason I think that now. But I mean, look at Christina Gomez and what she said. She did a brilliant article about, really taking down the backslappers when it comes to Lou Elizondo. It was called "Who is Lou? No, Who Are You?" Do read that article. I have discussed it on a previous video, which you can look at if you want.
It's all hogwash. Elizondo has got to keep the intrigue going because he doesn't want his book deal to evaporate.
What? Elizondo quit. He took early retirement from a top Department of Defense job. He was an official at the Pentagon. He was a top official. He probably lost a lot of his pension as a result of this. And not only that, no doubt he has lost a lot of credibility and prestige among his peers in the military. What do you mean he has to keep the grift? Keep the intrigue going? I mean, this is what the backslappers keep saying as well. It's a grift. It's a grift. He's just trying to make money. Well, there's easier ways to make money than this. How about working another few years and then retiring on a full pension? How about that? And then being able to do like maybe consultancy work after that, and get paid to go on to various lecture circuits and things like that within the conventional military society. He's sacrificed all that, for goodness sake. I mean, the only way you can possibly maintain this, and a lot of the backslappers do this as well, the only way you can possibly maintain this delusion that Elizondo is some kind of like blackguard is that he's basically being paid to spread disinformation within the UFO circuit. And again, there have been individuals who've done that. Richard Doty, for example. A lot of people suspect Nick Pope is the same, and I'm among those who have those suspicions. But really, there's no evidence of that either.
Also, Volume 2, the sequel. We've got
Return of the Killer AARO report. Yes. I'll be camping outside the cinemas to see that one.
We've got to, he doesn't want his book deal to evaporate. As I've said before, all these people have got book deals out there, And of course, AARO have said no.
Since when was it a crime to write a book? What do you mean? What's wrong with having a book deal? What about James Randi? James Randi's having a new book brought out posthumously. I think it's called The Magician in the Laboratory Part 2 or something like that. Chris French has got a new book with an amazing title. What was it? Hang on. I'll just come off. Let me just come off share screen for a moment. Chris French has a new book, right? It's called, hang on, Professor Chris French books. Let's have a look. Right, I'll show it to you. Here we go. Right. Do you want to see, right? So Chris French has got out a new book. I might read this actually, because like I said, I quite like Frenchy actually. He's not a bad guy. The Science of Weird Shit. Quote. That's a quote. You can see it here, right here. Why our minds conjure the paranormal. Right. Steve. Darling. Baby. Are you trying to tell me now that what's Frenchy doing then? Is this some kind of grift? Is he keeping the intrigue going because he has a book deal? And he's just trying to make money off skeptics. There's lots of gullible skeptics out there making money. Do you see what a hypocrite you are?
Visited by aliens. No one's interacting with aliens. Not one-armed woodcutters. Not lumberjacks.
One-armed woodcutters and lumberjacks. What's what? Oh, that's Billy Meyer, isn't it? Yeah, and lumberjacks.
And I think the boss of the lumberjack gang that was with Travis Walton said it was all a con.
Oh no! Oh, for goodness sake! Not this Travis Walton thing again. This has been going on. I'm not going to address the whole thing again. I addressed it in a previous video. But basically, a couple of years ago, I think the Travis Walton's father-in-law or ex-father-in-law or something decided to come out and say, who happened to be one of the men who was working with Travis that day in the woods. He came out and said, it was all a big scam. We were holed up in some kind of watchtower, something, a forest fire watchtower for a while for a bet. I can't remember all the details, but the backslappers lapped this up. Even Erica Lukes fell for this. That was very disappointing. But but later on, I mean, I know Norio Hayakawa was going to. He actually wrote an article about this, but then he withdrew it when he realised that it was all bollocks. In fact, the whole thing was. This has been happening in one form or another ever since 1975, when Travis had his experience. And it's now. This is Steve. It's kind of been forgotten now. It's kind of gone down the memory hole of ufology. And no one talks about this anymore because it was a phase people went through, and now everyone's trying to forget it. And you seem to be stuck in the past here. You're probably stuck in 2021 when all this was a thing. And the truth of the matter was, it was all very quickly discredited. Even Erica doesn't talk about it anymore. Even the backslappers have dropped this whole thing. Well, a couple of the really radical ones like Stephen Cambion still bring it up, but. Honestly, Steve, that is low hanging fruit, and it's really, really. You can do better than that.
It's a fabrication. No surprise there. Whitley Strieber's story, ridiculous. Personal opinion. It's all nonsense.
Was it? No, Whitley Strieber had a series of abductions. He wrote a book about it called Communion, and he was already an established author. He didn't need to make up stories about aliens. So what are you talking about?
So, Elizondo doesn't want his book deal to evaporate. He's still got to work on that because he's written the memoir. Now he's got to come up with all this stuff that he's got to seed it with, and he's got to impress his publishers with that. That's the tricky bit.
Yeah, you everything you've just said, I could say about Chris French. I don't, because I don't think there's anything wrong with people writing a book, skeptic or believer.
So is his conscience going to let him do what Corso did? We'll just have to wait and see. I'll get a copy.
Well, as I said, I'm not impressed with Philip Corso. I think the whole background to that book, The Day After Roswell, the book itself, the narrative is complete nonsense, and it's very transparently incredulous. But I'm not going to go into that now. But if Steve thinks that about the book, then I agree with him.
Library and have a look at it. I'm not spending any money on it, that's for sure. There's a guy called Moran. Is it Brian Moran or Brian the Moron? He's worked for everybody under the sun in the American government, apparently, super soldiers and all this sort of stuff. The sort of garbage that you see on Miles Johnston's channel, fighting in the astral.
Well, Miles is. I like Miles. I think he's a good guy. I don't agree with everything Miles does. I've never heard of this person you're talking about. You obviously find it amusing. Steve sounds quite funny when his laughter sped up.
And he said, anyway, this Moran said he's a mate of Elizondo's. Elizondo says, "Who's this bloke?" He's certainly not a friend of his.
Well, maybe that one of them's lying, making it up.
And there's a bit of fighting going on with the ET fanboys at the moment, because of what Danny Sheehan said,
there's always infighting going on. I mean, UFO Twitter is like, you've seen the memes, about the punch-ups and things like that. I really hate that sort of thing. Actually, I really hate the trolling and the very juvenile kind of falling out and bitter, and the escalation of arguments into the most hateful exchanges. It is what as Ross Coulthard calls it, puerile. It's puerile, and yeah, it is. It really is.
Then Travis Taylor came out and said what Sheehan said was a load of rubbish. It's all bullshit. And Eric Davis says what Bob Lazar says is all bullshit.
So, people are going to disagree. I personally think that I like Danny Sheehan, as I've said. I think he's our lawfare expert, but not everyone's going to agree. I
saw a picture of Bob Lazar looking quite dapper, holding up an Easter egg covered in tinfoil, and he said, "Oh, here we have a sample of element 115." So I'd have to ask Bob Lazar why he doesn't go along, give a statement to AARO, give a sample.
I don't find Bob Lazar terribly credible. I've sort of like, I'm not as keen on his testimony as I used to be.
Give the Easter egg to AARO to analyse. We'll find out what it really is. Of course, we still haven't heard any results from Nolan about the Texas alien ball.
Well, you could give them to AARO. The thing is, Bob Bigelow tried doing that, and I don't know the specifics of what Bob Bigelow found out, but I have described earlier about how the government have been very dishonest, and several organisations have been very dishonest in their analysis of physical evidence. Again, they come out with these clown's day off fallacy statements. Like, if they say, they raise the bar as well. They say, well, you show me something that has an isotopic ratio that shows it's not from the Earth. You show it to them and it says, oh, that's a piece of meteorite. You must have got a splinter from a piece of meteorite. Goodness me. How do you dispute people who are willing to just climb out onto that limb?
Plain old ball check valve made in the US of A. Coulthard, of course, is still trying to...
The ball check valve it rolls around, doesn't it? It rolls around on its own. I think one of them was found and disappeared, but maybe it's the same one.
All this nonsense alive. You know, he's got a book to sell. And you've got to bear in mind, too, that as a rebuttal to the AARO report, Coulthard saying, oh, it's all controlled, the media's all controlled.
Yeah.
Not possible to control the media. Story.
Excuse me. How many reporters I've seen how many reporters keep their jobs, are willing to risk their careers? How many of them have enough moral courage to speak out? What happens to those that do? What happens to people in any organisation like the NHS, which I've witnessed personally, when they dare to go against the narrative? How much support do they get from their peers and colleagues? You know, it's very easy to, if you know a little bit about human herd dynamics, and they have top psychologists working in these media organizations, you could get top journalists to write there's the moon is surrounded by a pink tutu, and everyone else would just nod along.
Stories always get out. Someone trying to control the media will be a bigger story than the story they're trying to control, you know?
Well, it is. It's in alternative circles, it is.
It's completely ludicrous. Coulthard could break it all wide open, of course. He could just tell us where this massive alien spacecraft is that's big as a football field or whatever it is, outside of the USA, so big they couldn't move and they had to put a building over it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to know that, but he won't tell us, will he? I mean, that is annoying. I wish he would just tell us where it is.
Tell us where that is, Mr. Coulthard. We'll all go and have a look and see if you can prove AARO are talking rubbish. Show us the spacecraft. You're an investigative journalist.
Yeah.
Stephen Greenstreet is running on the New York Post channel, a live stream that keeps going through all the stuff he's done with regard to debunking all this.
I've just showed you that. It's this one here. I might watch the whole thing in this. I might watch the whole cycle at some point. Not right now.
Well worth a watch. I might even leave a link to that below. Go and have a look at Stephen Greenstreet's stuff.
As I said, I listened to half his Twitter space, RIP UFOs, which is pretty much, it says, the title says it all. But again, he's wrong about almost everything.
He's thoroughly debunked all of this nonsense.
No, he hasn't.
He's an investigative journalist. Why can't Ross Coulthard, as an investigative journalist, uncover the same information? I suspect.
Well, he's trying to, but he's disagreeing with Greenstreet. So, but they're both investigative journalists. They both have their own opinion. I mean, to be fair, Greenstreet has gone. He camped out at Skinwalker Ranch and things like that. I mean, he's made. You know, he hasn't done anything. I don't criticize his methods, but I think he's come to the wrong conclusion. I think he's been hanging out with he's the wrong people. He's drunk a lot of Kool-Aid from Mick West and things like that.
He can, but he won't, because he's an ET fanboy. He's got books to sell. He wants this to be true, just like Nolan.
Let's just see. Has Stephen Greenstreet written any books? Let's have a look. Books by Greenstreet. Books by Stephen Greenstreet. Right. Let's just see. Let's just go to his Wikipedia page. Filmography. All right. He's made some films. Right. He's been making a lot, actually. Look, The Divided State. That's his new upcoming video, and he's making lots. Look. So he's a filmmaker. Okay. He hasn't got a book to sell, but he's got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 documentaries. Director, producer, host, producer, director. Yeah, he's got 7 documentaries to sell, Steve. So it's Steve. He's got 7 documentaries to sell. Does that mean, what is he? Is he keeping the intrigue going? Is he got to keep the money coming in for his documentaries? Is he doing all these horrible things that everyone else is doing because they disagree with you? They're doing nasty things. They're nasty. They're grifters, and they're circle jerkers, and they're profiteers, and all these other things. They're doing a bad thing by writing this book, etc., etc., etc. But you don't make the same criticism for Greenstreet, for his films. And of course, he writes articles and things. He's got a column he's got the basement office. He's got his New York Times column. He's a staff writer and things like that. So he's got a career built on his expressing his opinions. So Steve, why don't you criticize that? Why do you only criticize people who disagree with you? See, I criticize neither. I'm not having a go at Greenstreet for writing books. I'm not having a go at Frenchie for writing books. I might read Frenchie's book, actually, at some point. I quite like Frenchie. He's a Facebook friend of mine. He wouldn't appear. I wanted to interview him, and he wouldn't appear. But there you go.
Pepsi Cola or whatever bloody name is. I never remember. Diana Pasulka. Although she's a fangirl, obviously, not a fanboy.
Well, I mean, Diana Pasulka, she appeared in that encounter. I don't know a lot about her, actually. I mean, I've not really looked into a detail.
I did make a mistake actually with the last video. I know it's preposterous to even consider that I might make a mistake.
You make mistakes in all your videos.
But, Danny Sheehan was saying, oh, they got the DNA, and I said at the time that the interviewer should have jumped on that, and he should have done. That wasn't the mistake. But he did say who, and I missed it. And he said that the investigation panel or something had the alien DNA. Obviously, that's not true, is it? Because if anyone's got alien DNA, AARO's going to know about it. They've got the clearances to listen to anybody, to see anything. If anyone wanted to prove a case that this is all true, all they've got to do is go to AARO.
I'll move the microphone up because I know I'm breathing on the mic, and some of you don't like that. So apologies for doing that.
Go to 60 Minutes. Say, here it is. This is an alien windscreen wiper. You know, cut it up into bits, get it analysed by different universities around the world. That's all you got to do. There is no tangible evidence to support ET coming here. You know,
I can't comment on the specific case you're talking about, but Danny doesn't say these things lightly. Danny, I mean, again, I can't comment on, but I can't comment on this particular incident you're talking about. But I do know there are other people who've said similar things. People like Dr. Irina Scott, and they try to do exactly what you suggested, and they come up against brick walls of denial. They get ignored. And sometimes eventually they get threatened and ridiculed.
I mean, Diana Pasulka, she said some time ago 2 things. Well, actually, she said 3 contradictory things. One was the timing and how many alien spacecraft have been recovered. One occasion it was 4, and then the other it was 7, I think. The trip out to the site took an hour, then it took 45 minutes. She went out there with a guy that seems to be a fantasist.
I don't know much.
I mean, he might work for NASA, but that doesn't mean he's not delusional, he's not an ET fanboy, and he doesn't lap all this stuff up, you know. I mean, he's been seen with people that claim ET interaction, which is complete nonsense, of course. No one is interacting with ETs. They don't fly across the galaxy and interact with a construction worker.
Yes, they are interacting with ETs.
Or a lumberjack. It's ludicrous. Nonsense. It's rubbish.
The lumberjack, I mean, that's Billy Meyer. I'm not going to go into detail about because he's not very credible.
Anyway, Diana Pasulka, she said she went out to this crash site with this guy. She picked up a bit of wreckage and she scrunched it up, straight out of Roswell. This is scrunched it up, it unfurled in her hand, surrounded by debris.
Yeah, exactly like what Jesse Marcel Jr. said.
And I thought, well, the rest of the debris not done a very good job of unscrunching, has it? And when she's interviewed later on, some years later, she said, oh, there's no physical evidence. And people have asked me if I can take them to somebody who can show them some physical evidence. And the answer is, I can't. Because all this information is handed down verbally. There are no written records. There's no physical material. And that's what Diana
Well, the physical material was taken away by the Army Air Force. Now, I say I'm sort of speeding through this because I don't know much about Diana Pasulka, so I can't really comment on it. But she's someone I'm aware of, but I haven't looked into a detail because there's so much to go into, and I don't have time to go into all of it.
Booker said, how ludicrous is that? Can you imagine, analysing something as complex as an alien spacecraft and keeping the information in your head for years, for decades?
Well, sometimes that's the only option, Steve, to keep it in your head, because the alternative is just what? The alternative is you go to the government and ask them to give you the information that they have secreted deliberately. They've sealed away in vaults, in secret document facilities. They've classified them top secret. Sometimes memory is the only thing. It's like that line from the X-Files, the Amerindians who said, the red man trusts memory, the white man trusts history, but the red man has learned that memory does not lie, whereas history lies. Do you remember that? That's an incredibly poignant scene that I've described, where there's the aliens in the railway truck, the buried railway truck, and these guys in NBC suits like burning them. It's a horrible scene.
Passing it on verbally. I mean, that's pretty much what AARO says, isn't it? There is no tangible evidence. All it is stories that have been passed on and passed on and passed on by the same people at the core of all this for years, if not decades. It's stories, nothing tangible. While we're on the ET fanboys, I wonder how long it's going to take for people like Stephen Bassett to realise that they've wasted their life on this nonsense.
Because he hasn't wasted his life on it. He has not wasted a single minute. He's engaged in what I think is one of the most important quests that the world has ever seen. That the world needs to know about.
Are they going to say, okay, we'll accept it? Is the only story that they will accept, the dyed-in-the-wall UFO fanboys, the only story they will accept is it's all true. It's always been true, and it's true now.
We will accept that story. The reason we say that's the only story we'll accept is because we happen to know that's true for our own research. And I am an ET fanboy too, to use that derogatory, patronizing language. I I know it's true through other means, through other independent areas of inquiry. What we want is for confirmation from the official sources that is the case, so that then they come clean and they tell the truth about what's going on. Now, it's not the reason we will only accept that answer is because you already know it's true. I mean, some people say, well, who needs the bloody government anyway to say that? Well, because the government are suppressing it. The government are actively involved in the truth embargo. That's why. And there's something Freudian about it, the father figure archetype and stuff like that. But whatever the reason is, this is Steve is involved in that quest, and it's a vital quest. And he gave up everything for this. He was homeless. He lived in the back of his car. He slept in the back of his car. He went into a public toilet to wash. I mean, for goodness sakes, Steve, come on, Steve. That's a cheap shot, even by your standards.
Just been covered up as a truth embargo is the only story they want to hear.
No, it's the only story. It's the story that exists. It's not that we want to hear it. It's the truth.
I mean, if the American president or the Chinese president or someone like that came on and said, we can confirm that we're not alone in the galaxy, in the universe. We've been contacting aliens. Here's the recordings of everything we've got here, or we've got some tangible evidence. We've got some materials here from an alien spacecraft. Then I'd accept it. I don't have a problem with that.
Would you? I mean, I hope you would, Steve. I mean, if to be honest, if I really found unequivocal proof that every UFO story, every single one, all the UFO evidence was fake, if I found unequivocal proof of that, I hope I'd be honest enough and courageous enough to accept it too. I really do. I've actually said this. Actually, if you remember I don't know if you've seen it, Steve, but there was my I forgot the title of the video, but it's the one where I do a conspiracy theorist's deconversion course. It's quite a long video, but I mean, I do address this point there. So if you've not seen that, please do go and watch it.
They have a problem with being told there is no evidence. Doesn't matter how many times you tell these people.
Well, we have a problem with it because it's not true.
It's all just science fiction stories. There's no evidence. They will never, ever believe it because they don't want to.
No, it's because that happens to be the truth.
Not interested in the truth. They're interested in the science fiction.
We are interested in the truth. That's the whole point. If we accept this, if we accept this excuse by the Pentagon, if we just accept these continuous fob-offs, right? In the skeptic eye, that would be more honest. I mean, as I said in my skeptic talk, the skeptic who says, I'm not going to look at it. I don't believe. I know it's not aliens, but I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not interested. That person is considered more rational than the person who says, oh, well, let's have a look at it and see what it is. You see what I mean? So I think, Steve, you completely misunderstand or you're misrepresenting the situation.
ET narrative, that's it. Anything outside of that is a cover-up, is a truth embargo.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the situation.
Even Richard Dolan has realised that people are getting fed up to the back teeth of all this science fiction, UFO, UAP, ET rubbish. Now he's written a book on USOs underwater.
All right, I've not actually heard Dolan's latest comments on this situation. I know he does his YouTube channel. I don't know if he's done one lately, but we can. I've got to come to this later. This Pentagon quietly reveals new UFO footage. That's exciting, that is. But we'll just have a look at his channel and see what he said. Richard Dolan. Come on, that's it. Intelligent disclosure. Richard Dolan. I'm Richard Dolan. I'm associated. Right, the latest one was 12 days ago. So when's his latest live stream? 1 month ago. Latest video 12 days ago. So he hasn't said anything recently. But I'll check that out later, Steve, because as far as I know, I haven't checked his Twitter or Facebook either. So anyway, I do follow him on other platforms, but we'll have a look. YouTube is his favorite social media platform. That's where you usually find his new stuff. And he said nothing. For at least almost 2 weeks now.
Identified submerged objects. He's given up on.
Oh yeah, USOs. He's doing something about USO. Darcy Weir has also made a new video about USOs, which I haven't watched yet. But when I do, I will interview him.
Flying saucers. But he has said in the past, writing books and giving talks about all this UFO ET stuff is a lot better than having to get a real job. He's not interested in getting a real job. He's said that in his own words.
Well, it is a real job. I mean, Richard Dolan was well on the way to a healthy career as a historian, a major academic career. And he did in the 80s. He was studying here in Oxford, where I am, and he almost became a Rhodes Scholar. He was studying history and politics and things like that. He did like a very, very brief module on UFOs, which he thought would only last maybe a month or so, and then he could go back to his serious work. And he read Timothy Good and things like that. That changed his life. And I hear things like this all the time. People get into UFOs very briefly and thinking, oh, it's all a load of nonsense. I'll have a brief look at it because, my tutor told me to, and then I'll put that aside and just go back to normal stuff. But they go into it not believing, skeptics, and they come out of it changed men. J. Allen Hynek was the same. So how do you explain that, Steve?
That's Richard Dolan. So how much credibility can you assign to Dolan? Personally, I think none.
Well, I mean, as I said, I don't like the guy. I think he's a tosser. But I actually do like I find his work interesting.
Remember Elizondo as well as claimed remote viewing ability. He's mates with far out guys like Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis, and connecting. They're connecting to ETs with their consciousness. Complete.
Well, Puthoff, I'm not sure I trust. He was involved in a Stanford Research Institute's work on Uri Geller, which was funded by the CIA. So I'm not sure where Puthoff comes in. Puthoff was the guy called Owl in the Avery Network, worked with Richard Doty.
And utter rubbish. Can you connect to ETs with your consciousness? This is a recurring theme. Eamon Ansbro with his machine, with his PVC pipes with the coils on, Eamon Ansbro, PhD, ABD. Means he hasn't got a PhD. Oh, yeah, but you can't use the machine. You can't use the device as a standalone communications device to talk to aliens. You've got to use that in conjunction with your consciousness.
Well, I mean, there are people who have telepathic connections to aliens. I mean, this was a theme in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Do you remember the main character, Roy Neary? He does what he does because he has these downloads, these mental downloads from extraterrestrials. And that whole film was based on real ufological studies.
Communicate with the aliens. And we've got John Stewart, the guy that always looks perpetually happy.
Oh, I interviewed John, yeah. You may have seen the video I did with him a little while ago.
He's still peddling the alien interview story as being real.
Because it is real.
Obviously isn't. Of course, I've demonstrated the vertical line device.
No, and please do follow Victor Nevada on social media. And there's many other researchers as well, Sean David Morton. That is real. I mean, and indeed John himself. I mean, just look at the video I made about it, please, Steve.
Complete and utter nonsense. I mean, you've only got to look at it for 2 minutes. Anyone with an IQ bigger than their shoe size can see that is fake within 20 seconds.
That's just silly. That's a piece of silly rhetoric. And you've used that analogy before, and it's not. If anyone who looks at that alien interview video will see that it's not. All the signs are there that it's real.
No sound, extremely poor lighting. It's because the alien can't stand the light, and then someone shines a torch in its eyes. Complete and utter drivel. So I think
the guy shining a torch in his eyes was a doctor checking for hemorrhaging around the eyeball. That's what the light was for.
I think that's about it. I thought I'd do a quick video as the AARO report has just come out. But if you look at all the contradictory information that's floating around as well, with all the infighting within the ET fanboy group, it all looks to me like it's falling apart.
I don't like that infighting either, Steve. But it's always been there. Look at the Larry Warren controversy. Look at the Darren Perks controversy. These hate cults just sort of float up out of the ether because that's human nature. Some people are just like that. Some people are belligerent, and the internet gives them the ability to behave in ways towards others that they wouldn't be normally because they don't have the guts and to approach people in real life. So they just do it online with the anonymity and the impunity that the keyboard and monitor gives them. And I don't like it. I don't like it either. I don't like the infighting, but that's not a sign that the narrative is falling apart. That's a sign that people are disagreeing on it, and that's always been the case.
It seems. Be interesting to see what Volume 2 of the AARO report has to say. I don't know when that's due out.
Oh yes, I'm on the edge of my seat.
But certainly Volume 1, which goes back to 1947, it's the Mogul balloon crash at Roswell, is the most likely case.
All right, yeah. The AARO report does mention the Mogul balloon. It's let's go back to luckily, like I say, its hyperlink content is very useful. But I mean, you know all this, don't you? You know about this, Project Mogul. This. I don't even have to read this out. A crash balloon associated with Project Mogul outside of Roswell, New Mexico, is assessed to be the source of early UFO claims. Male cow excrement. Bollocks. Utter crap.
What most likely happened in that case.
No, it didn't. It's transparent disinformation.
Zero recovered ET materials, right the way through, and they've looked at the different projects all the way through. They've looked at the aerospace companies. There is nothing there. When it comes to ET, recovered extraterrestrial materials, nothing there. And apparently this Kona project was set up, it was real.
Ironic, that's the one thing I've never heard of in that entire report. I've never heard of the Kona project. Is it something to do with Hawaii? I know Kona is like a part of the big island of Hawaii.
To look at recovered alien biological and technological material. But I think it was set up as part of ORSAP, Skinwalker Ranch, dino beavers.
Oh, yes, you've got to bring up the dino beavers and the smoking dog-headed men. Yeah, bloody ha. But, there's so much more to since Skinwalker Ranch than that. I mean, look at the latest documentary that came out of it, the one with Travis Taylor.
Werewolves, But of course, they wound that up when they found they had no materials to analyse.
No, they didn't. They didn't wind it up for that reason. It sure there was limited success on the research project, but something was going on there.
There you go. So no harm setting something up in case you find something, especially if you've just started a project to investigate it. You put $22 million in the pot to investigate it. You think you might set something up to do something with anything they might find, and they found nothing.
So the government just spent $22 million on a fairy story, did they? I mean, maybe I spoke too soon, because they do, don't they? Government spend, well, look how much they're spending on bloody wokeism.
So they disbanded it. Nothing strange about that.
Now, what happened was that the ranch essentially was sold to Bigelow bought it, and then the Sherman stayed on as tenants, but then Bigelow sold it to Fugel, who's got it now, and it's all re-emerging now as a private enterprise. But the research is still going on there.
Skinwalker Ranch, apparently now they've found an alien spacecraft buried in the ground. At Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, they found something. What happened was they found I can't remember. It was in the article. It was in the documentary. They found something under a magnetic anomaly or something like that. But they didn't dig, because if you start digging at Skinwalker, horrible things happen. They found there's other things as well, like the alpacas, and I can't remember all the details, but they captured images of UFOs and things like that.
And they can't dig it up and show it to anyone.
They can't, because if you start digging at Skinwalker Ranch, I remember that they found it with I think ground penetrating radar. But I mean, it's not easy. You can't just get your shovels and start digging at Skinwalker Ranch. Firstly, it's very dangerous. Firstly, it's actually excavating a buried UFO is not easy to do.
They can't get permission. They can't get permission from the council to dig it up.
Look, it may sound trivial, but it does happen. I mean, look at the Aurora UFO, the Aurora alien that's buried in the graveyard in Texas. They can't go. Jim Mars tried to dig it up in the 70s, and he was told he went to the Texas Supreme Court. He wanted to get like an exhumation order, couldn't get one, because it's got rights of sepulchre. You're digging up a grave unlawfully is a very, very serious offence. Rights of sepulchre, even if the beneficiary of that law happens to be an ET being, you still can't just dig it up. And then, of course, someone else, probably the CIA, came along and dug it up anyway. And so it's a very similar situation, I think, on Skinwalker. You can't just go digging, even on private land. You can't just go digging into ground and just say, well, we can dig a big hole here and pull up something unknown.
Now, if that was me, I would have dug it up, got a film crews in, everything else, and then said sorry. It's always easier to apologise, isn't it, than get permission. They haven't done that because it doesn't exist. I did a video about Skinwalker.
Do you know how much that would cost, Steve? Do you know how much money that would cost?
Ranch a long time ago. If you look at it on Google Earth, there's loads of fracking wellheads all around the property, gas and oil, fracking. So if you're walking around Skinwalker Ranch and you hear some funny noises, or your eyes start watering, it's probably gas coming out of the ground from all the fracking and all the oil that.
I thought fracking was safe. I thought fracking was safe and effective. No, I thought fracking was a brilliant new energy source that's going to take us forward into the future. Ooh. Steve, you're getting a bit radical now.
That's being done all around the property. I think Frugal will realise that one day, and he'll wind it up and he'll stick some fracking wellheads on the property and make more money out of it. That's probably where this will end up. But it's like Skinwalker Ranch, I've said it before. A book that thick full of stories, not one picture. It's absolute bloody rubbish. Any strange effects? Glowing balls of gas. A bit like methane coming out of the ground, Goodness knows what else. It's probably what made Stephen Greenstreet's eyes water. Just something coming out of the ground. And they knew there was something coming out of the ground around where they told him to go, because they knew it would have that effect on him.
Do you think Greenstreet would have? Do you think Greenstreet would have gone exactly where what people he regards as UFO piffle peddlers, to use your language, would have done that? No, he's not. He's not that stupid. I mean, sure. I mean, I think his choice of hairdresser has a lot to be desired. I suspect that hairdresser probably came from a line of hairdressers, shall we say, going back to 1930s in Germany, among whose customers was a certain maligned and misunderstood artist, shall we say. But apart from that, I think he's quite sensible.
Oh, science fiction rubbish. It's manipulated claptrap.
No, it's not.
And I can't wait to see Elizondo's book. As I say, I'm not going to buy it, obviously, but I can't wait to see it. Because all he ever says is, "Well, I can't talk about that." He can't talk about it. He certainly can't write about it, can he? So I think he's in a bit of a pickle at the moment. This is why it's all being pushed back and it's pushed back and it's pushed back at the time of our choosing. Because he's still thinking, "How the hell am I going to do this?" Do I really want to go down in history as another Philip Corso? Philip Corso 2. Another military bullshitter, Put it all in writing. How many more of them have got books out there about all this rubbish, That Diana Pasulka, she's got a book out called Cosmic. She's a professor of religion. She's never seen any aliens. She's only been told science fiction stories. She chooses to believe it, and she's writing books about it.
That's sad. I don't know much about her.
The failed contractor writing books about talking to aliens, liaising with aliens. Bob Lazar, look into his history. Look at what he's done since he was supposedly, he did work at S4 as a radiation badge technician or radiation detection equipment technician. He's no scientist. Stanton Friedman said he's no physicist.
Yeah, well, I'm not particularly enamoured of Bob Lazar's story anymore. But I mean, this whole thing is not dependent on him.
He always ran away when Stanton Friedman was around. He wouldn't sit down and talk to Stanton Friedman if they were at a conference together. And most of these conferences, Alien Con and all this other, they all end in con. They're telling you.
Well, this is that. I think that's a bad thing that they do, like MegaCon, UFO MegaCon, things like that. This is why I shorten when I shorten the word conference or convention, I shorten it to conf. I put an F there, conf, to avoid that very thing.
What they're doing. If you look at the parking fees, all these people get. That's why they want to keep it alive. Travis Taylor, $4,000 for this, $8,000 for that. All these people stand up there. It's ka-ching time, and they rely on all these gullible bloody half-wits all over the world lapping this up, saying, "Oh, it's truth embargo. We know they're here."
Yeah, but that's what Chris French is doing. You get all these like skeptic believers in the materialistic paradigm lapping it up, Steve. They're lapping it up, and Chris French is going ka-ching. He's making money, isn't he? He's making money. Do you see how two-faced you are?
I'll pay $2,000 to go and listen to this guy tell me science fiction stories because that's what I want to hear. I lap it up. Like a lizard drinking, as we say here in Australia. Lap it up. Pay through the nose to lap up all this science fiction rubbish.
I don't think he's going to say anything more sensible.
And they'll probably continue to do so because they're not smart enough.
Okay, I'm just going to go. I think he's just going to.
See, blue in the face. People that know. People that have been tasked with finding out all the clearances.
No, he's just repeating himself now.
Be all over the internet. Be all over every television channel on the face of the earth. And they'd all be fighting each other to get the Nobel Prize to be the first person to announce.
Oh, here we go.
Up. If they went to Lockheed and Lockheed said, "Actually, yeah, we've got the flying saucer here." Be all over the internet. Be all over every television channel on the face of the earth.
Oh yes, of course. If they actually came out and said that, it would. If this essentially would be disclosure, it would happen. Yeah.
And they'd all be fighting each other to get the Nobel Prize to be the first person to announce that we are not alone in the universe.
I think Putin should do it, like I've said.
Everybody remembers Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, first person to do anything.
Allegedly.
Is the one that's remembered. How many of you? Okay, we can name Buzz Aldrin because he was the public face, if you like, of Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong didn't want to know anything about publicity, so people remember Buzz Aldrin. How many people watching this video, without looking it up, can name any two of the remaining astronauts involved in the Apollo lunar missions? So 13, 14. I know 13 didn't land there. It was still an Apollo mission. 15, 16, 17. They're all three-man crews. So, how many people, how many of those astronauts can you name without looking them up? people.
What's that got to do with it? Because they're like also ran, so therefore we remember the name. Everyone knows Captain Scott, didn't they? He was the second man to get to the South Pole, but everyone knows his name. We in Britain, I mean, as I said, we in Britain know him better than the first man, Roald Amundsen. And the reason is, like I said in my Boudica video lately, is partly it's patriotic because he's British, but secondly because we love heroic failures. We've got a bit of a passion for those.
People that went to the moon, people that walked on the moon. There's only half a dozen of them walked on the moon, wasn't there? 11, 14, 15, 16.
Well, maybe none of them did. They were actually walking around a studio in Area 51.
17, yeah. So 12 guys walked on the moon. How many can you name without looking it up? So anybody involved in this, if this was real, they want to be the first, because they would be the ones whose names would go down in history.
Well, you see, the seeking of fame and fortune is not the only motive here, Steve. I don't think that's your analogy with the moon landings, assuming they were real. I don't think he's honest, because the moon landings, supposing they happened the way history has told us they've happened, they were a scientific and prestigious adventure to another world. The truth embargo and the breaking of it is basically a cornerstone of the geopolitical order. Whoever is the first person to come forward and break the story, and to on one hand, they could be Neil Armstrong and go down in history forever as the greatest person in the world, or they could be cursed forever as the man or the woman who ended the world as we know it and created chaos. So your analogy is not correct.
They would be the ones that got the Nobel Prize.
You must be joking. They get a Nobel brass knuckle duster in the face and a shallow grave.
It's not real, is it?
It's real.
All right. Well, I think that's an update and a bit of a rant there. I don't think there's anything I've missed. Yeah, I think that's about it.
All right.
So, as always, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to video partner, the second video, because he's done 2 videos on this subject. Here we go. The slightly longer one there. Comments on.
Watch this. Perhaps he can explain to everybody what.
Okay. Comments on pushback from the ET piffle peddlers. So, what's this? Intelligent life has arrived is on his T-shirt. I put a comment on here actually. I put comments on here, so you can have a look at that.
Well, hello again. Well, it didn't take long, did it? The UFO fanboys are jumping up and down. Coltard is using words like piffle and.
Yeah, so he probably got it from you.
And poppycock to describe the AARO report, Volume 1. Now,
I think those are accurate words to describe them.
Piffle and poppycock are not generally used in the Australian vocabulary, which makes me wonder if Mr. Coltard isn't having a bit of a sneaky peek at my videos.
I'm sure he is. And as I said here, I actually put a comment here. I'm sure, of course, Ross watches you, Steve. He loves a good hate watch as much as I do. It is by studying the mistakes made by the skeppers and black backslappers that we construct a robust positive case for UAPs. And I've got a reply here from him. Here you go, it's identifying my mistakes. Fire away. And Fu Man Boob says, show me evidence isn't a mistake. Yeah, and I'll reply to him here, actually. You see, you're watching this live, and evidence is being shown, but not by AARO. Yeah. Right, so let's carry on.
Well, I hope so, anyway, because if he does watch this, perhaps he can explain to everybody why, as an investigative journalist, he hasn't done any of the investigations that Mr. Stephen Greenstreet has done. I think Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post has shown very clearly that all this ET stuff is complete and utter rubbish.
No, he has done the same investigations. He's come to different conclusions. To say, well, because this person disagrees with me, he hasn't done the investigations. That's unfair. I don't pretend that Stephen Greenstreet has just ignored these things. I think he's just fallen in with a bad crowd. He's, like I said, he's drunk the Mick West Kool-Aid, and it's led him down a blind alley.
I'll leave a link to. He's got a live stream running at the moment, which is all the stuff he's done on a continuous loop. I'll leave a link to that below. I left a link to it below yesterday as well.
Oh, that's this one I've showed you. It's I'll watch that at some point.
But I'll leave a link to it below. I'm
not going to show it because I'll definitely get a copyright strike if I show Greenstreet's video on here. I'm hoping Steve Mumbling. I know Steve will not actually copyright strike me for using his. for videos. That's one thing I must say he would never do.
Today, good. So take a look at that, and then ask yourself why a lot of these UFO piffle peddlers, these piffle peddlers. So let's keep UFOs and ET separate.
Well, UFOs and ETs are not separate. I mean, UFOs are an unidentified flying object, and ET is extraterrestrial. I believe that some UFOs are ET. You know. I mean, Steve Bassett always insists on using the right terminology.
Bagging Stephen Greenstreet. You know, a lot of them don't like him, and Stephen Greenstreet, yeah, you know. But what they don't do is debunk what he's saying in detail.
Well, don't we? I think we do.
They don't look at what he's presenting and then say this is inaccurate because.
Have you seen the comments on that video? Have you seen the comment that I left in the comments on that video? It's in the live chat at the moment. When the loop finishes, it'll be underneath. He is being challenged. They are explaining why he's wrong.
And move on to the next thing. This is inaccurate because none of it is inaccurate. It clearly shows how ORSAP and ATIP were operated by the Pentagon. You know, who set it up, how much money was involved, what they were actually doing. You know, Bigelow got $22 million to investigate his own ranch, didn't he?
Well, he was part. No, he actually didn't own Skinwalker Ranch at the time. What Bob Bigelow's involvement with ORSAP ATIP was the study of materials research. He had a laboratory at Bigelow Aerospace for that.
And that you know, there really is no substance to any of this ET nonsense.
Well, yes, there is.
It really is. It's just a load of crap.
No, it's not.
Elizondo. They said, well, there's no going back now. You know, this is going to be the year. It's all bubbling away under the surface.
Maybe it is. Wouldn't you be kicking yourself if you believe in these things? Just imagine you became a skeptic or a backslapper at the last minute. And as I said before, you know, if you're an optimist and you're proven wrong, you're disappointed. You know, fair enough. I'd be disappointed. But if you're a pessimist and you're proven wrong, you miss out on all the fun. You uninvite yourself from the party.
Break through at any minute. But of course, he can't say anything else, can he? Because he doesn't want his book deal to evaporate. As I said yesterday, some of this might be a little bit repetitive. But
well, you're just repeating.
Apologies for that. It's just looking at some of the pushback, and I was watching Ross Coulthard, and I was falling about laughing, absolutely falling about laughing. You can tell he's seriously upset. It's almost as bad as the video he did where everyone was. What was it? I can't remember what it. I did a video showing him saying it's over, and puerile, and it definitely looks like someone's taking a dump in his cornflakes to me. But what he's not doing is he's not pointing out where Stephen Greenstreet is going wrong. I don't think he even mentioned Stephen Greenstreet.
No, he hasn't yet, but I mean, he doesn't have to mention Stephen Greenstreet personally. I mean, he explained exactly what a lot of things that was wrong with it. He explained a lot that was actually wrong. I mean, I made some notes actually when I was watching him on News Nation. So, for example, lots of military cases were ignored. I mean, the whole AARO report didn't actually address some of the best cases, especially those involving nuclear weapons. Again, as I've already explained, they didn't speak to all the information. They didn't speak to all the witnesses to get information. And what's more, Congress is not letting this go. Congress is taking the same position as Ross. They're going to have more hearings, more skiffs. And, you know, neither is the public. Neither is the public. I think all that's happened here, Steve, is the door has opened for catastrophic disclosure. You know, I don't really need to show Steve's video now, do I? I can just play the audio. You can hear it. That's the main thing.
The reason for that, I think, is that he knows that Stephen Greenstreet's done a very good job of debunking it all. And Ross Coulthard wants to keep all this nonsense alive. Now, Ross Coulthard has said in a couple of interviews that he doesn't even think it's ET. He thinks the most likely explanation for all this is NHI, non-human intelligence. But
NHI is just a slightly more cautious way of saying ET. Because if something is NHI, non-human intelligence, the implication is, well, if it's not human and it's intelligence, where does it come from? And of course, that's what the question there is, well, where is it going to come from? There's a whole list of things: angels and demons, time travelers, interdimensional, you know, ghosts, things like that. Ultra terrestrials, they've shared the earth with us and we never found them, etc. But the most obvious and most likely explanation for NHI, although NHIs may be more than one thing, is that they come from other planets within our universe. And that's perfectly reasonable. So ET and NHA are kind of, they're not quite a synonym, but they're close. And so saying, well, something is NHI means therefore he's not saying it's ET is false. He is saying 80% sure that it's ET. As your teacher says, intelligent life has arrived.
Another dimension. I can sense all these other dimensions all around me. This crowds are big with this one here. It's just on my right shoulder here. It's the football crowd in another dimension watching a football game.
Well, maybe there are.
These people have got no idea, have they? So Lord Elizondo doesn't want his book deal to evaporate. So it's all coming. It's all coming.
And I'll just slow it down a little bit because he's babbling now. Here we go.
He's like a coiled spring, Lou Elizondo. He's ready to pounce and disclose and release all this information. But he has to say that because his publisher will be wanting to hear that. His publisher is waiting with bated breath for all these ET secrets that Lou Elizondo is going to espouse.
He's just repeating from yesterday now. You got anything else to say?
I strongly suspect that if he does espouse any ET secrets, they'll have as much validity as Whitley Strieber's encounters, or Mr. Bledsoe's encounters, or Travis Morton's encounters, or Betty and Barney Hill.
Oh, Betty and Barney Hill, they were real. They were the real thing, just like the others.
There's no tangible evidence to support any of this extraterrestrial nonsense.
I think he's just repeating himself now.
But apparently, off camera, what he said was that it was human DNA, but it had been made by an alien.
Oh, and we've been through that.
They look pretty dissimilar, don't they? But even with that close a DNA match,
it's just that's.
And they've got 3 fingers.
Oh, he's talking about Gary Nolan now. He's already been through this.
3 fingers. Yeah, three fingers on each hand. You sent it to us. You pay us to recover it. I wouldn't say I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That makes no sense at all, does it? It doesn't matter what aerospace company it is.
All right, I'm going to leave it. I think he's just kind of repeating himself now. I think Steve is just repeating himself now. But anyway, I'll put a link to both the videos in the description box so you can go and watch them. You can watch the whole thing for yourself. And if you think Steve has said something that I've missed, I'm leaving this open. If you think he said something that I've missed, then by all means let me know. Just tell me, and I will address those points, and I'll even go to the video in the next comments reply video, and I'll go and address the points. All right. So and that includes Steve himself. What's really weird, I've got to thank a friend of mine for bringing this to my attention. Do you ever get the feeling somehow you're being gaslit? Because something very, very strange has happened. And I found out about this on the Angry Astronauts channel. It's here. I'll use this presentation system here. And this is the Angry Astronauts channel here. Now, the Angry Astronaut because of his name. You could tell by his name. He used to discuss primarily space exploration, but he's come round to the idea of UFOs, and he's become very pro UFO. And so you can check it out here. I won't play this, but it says Pentagon quietly reveals new UFO footage and photos. Why? And funnily enough, it's revealed this footage here. I'll play this little bit of it.
The government has been
right. This little bit here. This is from 1974, I believe, and this is something gathered by U.S. government, and it's been classified since then, and it's just been released. Now, the release of this particular video, and there's a couple of others. Go away, Steve. Is not related to the AARO. Apparently not related to the release of the latest AARO report. Now, I must say that does look to me like a bolide meteor, or as Andy Roberts would say, a bolide meteor. But you got this other thing here beside it, which could be something else. I don't know. Apparently, there was a UFO seen following this particular object. But the fact of the matter is, though, this was classified. Now it's been released. It was classified. That I've seen. That's appeared in many pieces of UFO literature, so I don't think that's a recent declassification. But anyway, I've got to ask the question: are we being gaslit? Why have these two events happened so close to each other? The release of the AARO report, and at the same time, the release of this UFO. As I said, Pentagon quietly reveals, this is what the Angry Astronaut says, Pentagon quietly reveals new UFO footage and photos. Why? Exactly. Why now? Why at this very moment? That's what doesn't make sense. So I don't know if there's are these just like really, I mean, it's possible these are just really bad cases that are going to be, they're putting up like a straw man to be shot down very easily, like they did with the alien autopsy. Sorry, Colin. And things like that. I do wonder. Or it could have some other purpose. Either way, I think maybe it's just suspicious. It's just suspicious. But anyway, guys, if you want to go and read the AARO UAP report, I'll put a link in the description box to that if I remember. But it goes into things like NASA. I've mentioned NASA and the independent group and what they have done. It mentions other countries like UK, Canada, France. And it mentions, as I say, Wilbert B. Smith and his document. The documents came from his study. Excuse me. It claims that that in these 3 countries, they came to exactly the same conclusion as the United States. They do mention something called the AARO car. Now, this on the surface looks quite convincing. I'll just find it. Let me just find you a picture of the AARO. Now, a lot of you are going to gasp when you see this. This is the AARO car. This was built by a Canadian company in the early 1950s. And, well, yeah, it does look. Doesn't that look like a flying saucer? It does, doesn't it? I mean, the AARO company, the Canadian company that built this thing, and it does look, like I said, if you saw this flying above you, maybe you would think that's actually a UFO. It's actually being something ET. That's understandable. The thing about it is the AARO car didn't work very well. In fact, during the test flights were very unsuccessful. As a result, the project was abandoned, and the AARO car never really flew. So that I don't think can be an explanation for the UFO sightings, because they do go on to say, well, that a lot of things such as a lot of the secret aviation projects we were developing at that, from the 1940s through the 1960s were responsible through misidentification for some UFO reports. Project Aquatone, for example, the race to develop a high-altitude, long-range reconnaissance aircraft that, again, started in the early 50s. It eventually ended up in 1955 at Area 51. It was the first project worked at Area 51. But there's that, to me, using the AARO car, I think, is an excuse. And really, the report concludes, to date, AARO has not discovered any empirical evidence that any sighting of a UAP represented off-world technology or the existence of a classified program that had not been properly reported to Congress. Well, I think that, well, there's 2 conclusions there, and I think they're both probably incorrect. As I said, this document is far longer than previous AARO reports, but somehow it says even less. It seems to contain almost no original information at all. Now, of course, the backslappers, I mean, Steve Mumbling's already alluded to this. The skeptics and the backslappers, what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, Ben, it's sour grapes. It's just sour grapes. You wanted the government to investigate UFOs, and they did. And now you're annoyed because they didn't give you the answer that you want to hear. But I think that's unfair because, as I explained, as I said when I was addressing Steve's video, there's many times in detail I have given the reasons why I think that conclusion is incorrect, probably deceptive. And this is one of many occasions where the government has issued a fake nothing to see here, move along story. And they even lied about the very organization of this, the very organization we're talking about. They denied its existence. There was a specific question asked to them through a petition, through the White House petition in 2011 that said, are you investigating UFOs? They said no, whereas they knew from at least 2007 that they were. So why should we believe them now? Why on earth should we believe what they're saying now? So I think that it's a bit actually silly what Stephen Greenstreet has called his Twitter space, RIP UFOs. Steve Mumbling has really said something very similar along similar lines. I don't think this is going to go away. It's not over. This is not even anything particularly original and groundbreaking in terms of its debunking nature. What has happened here, I hope, and it's not ideal, but I think it may be the only option. What has happened here, I hope, is that all this has done is simply open the door, and it's probably sped along the process, bubbling beneath the surface, as Steve said about Lou Elizondo, towards catastrophic disclosure. Catastrophic disclosure. It's like, as I said, it's a neologism for the current UFO era, like ontological shock. But if this is the only way, what are we going to do? We either have if it's a choice between catastrophic disclosure and no disclosure, I'll accept the former. In my book, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, I addressed that exact possibility. This is a story. It's not real, but it's an imaginary scenario where catastrophic disclosure and ontological shock take place. It's available for £10 at all good bookshops now, so you can go and pick that up. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. If you like this video, you'll like that book. And so I've talked before about the implications of catastrophic disclosure, not just in the book, but in other videos and other articles and my radio shows. And no doubt I'll come back to it again, especially as it seems to be looming more and more now. So that's something I'm going to have to return to again. And finally, as for Steve Mumbling, I mean, I've not done a reply to Steve Mumbling video for a very long time now. I don't know exactly how long, but it's been quite a long time. As always, I'll probably put a link in the description box to the last one. Steve wanted to have a debate with us. We gave him on the Paranormal Peep Show a debate on the Apollo missions, which he took part in. And it was all fair and above board. We let him keep his own copy of the raw files. He often said he wanted to have a debate with me, and I said yes. In the end, I said, yes, I will debate with you, Steve. But please, could we do it on another subject other than Apollo? So any subject apart from Apollo. And he declined. He said no. And about that same time, he stopped commenting on my channel. And a lot of people said, "Oh, he's gone good." And there's even people said, "Why didn't you block Steve Mumbling? Why didn't you block Steve Mumbling?" Well, you know, he in fact, I'm going to tell you something now that I've not said before, and some of you won't believe me. But I wonder. Please let me know if you're one of the few people who will believe me. Would you believe me if I told you that I kind of miss him? Honest, I do. When he used to brighten up the comments reply videos, I think he did. Not least because I could imitate his voice. So, well, you never know. That debate might take place one day. In the meantime, it's good to get back in the saddle with replying to Steve Mumbling. And again, this was going to be a UFO disclosure video, but I thought now I'll make it a reply to Steve Mumbling and include his videos in it, which makes it a lot better. What's coming next? Well, of course, we've got to finish off the watch party for the lighthouse. There's going to be another comments reply video probably at the weekend. And next week, I'm going out and about. I've got an interesting little trip I'm going to do. A kind of roving review stroke trip. So for those of you who like my out and about videos, one of those is coming soon. In the meantime, thanks you, all of you, for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.